Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today's video is going to be the Girl Scout cookie book tag. So I think I'm a little late doing this book tag. I've seen a couple people do it, namely Marissa Tommen. I don't know how her name is pronounced. I will link her channel down below, but she is who I saw do this book tag first. I don't know the creator off the top of my head, so I will try to find that information and link it for you as well. But these are just questions based on Girl Scout cookies, which I don't know if they're international. I don't think they are, because I'm pretty sure it's Girl Scouts of America. But every late winter, early spring, the Girl Scouts sell cookies, and they have the most delicious cookies in the world, but they're only for sale for like 4 weeks, so you have to buy them. And luckily this year we had a plug because someone my husband works with has a child who is a Girl Scout, and so we bought cookies from them, and it was great. And they're all gone now, obviously, because that's how it goes. But without further ado, I'm just gonna go through these questions and answer them and pick a book based on the prompts. The first prompt is Trefoils, and it's a classic that you love. And for this, I'm gonna say Emma by Jane Austen. I did a Jane Austen read along a few years ago now. I think it was 2021, so like 3 years ago now. And I loved that read along. I read all of the works by Jane Austen, I think all the full-length novels in publication date order, and Emma was my favorite from that read, which was very exciting. I loved this book so much. I also loved the adaptation that has Toni Collette in it. It's so funny. This is about Emma Woodhouse, who is a young woman living in Regency, England, as they all are, and she decides kind of that she is a matchmaker because I think she thinks that she set up her not stewardess, governess with this guy, even though she didn't set them up, but in her mind she did, because she thought they would be a good pair. And so she is always getting into trouble trying to matchmake people, including her really good friend in this book, who's played by Toni Collette in the film. And it's also about her falling in love with this guy who is like a childhood friend of hers, kind of, except there's a big age gap. So I think he was like 17 when she was a kid. But barring that, this is one of the sweetest, funniest books by Jane Austen. A lot of people really don't like Emma as a character because she's very precocious, she's very nosy, she's very she's a busybody. She's always in everybody's business, but I just found that so fun to read, and I really thought this was hilarious. So highly recommend Emma if you have not read it already. The next prompt is Lemon Ups, a book that you find inspiring. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't think I've ever had a lemon up. I don't really know what it is, but a book that you find inspiring. So for this, I'm gonna say Educated by Tara Westover. And the reason that, or Tara, she might pronounce it Tara, I don't know. I have a cousin who pronounces it Tara, but I know it's pronounced Tara a lot of places. Regardless. It is the memoir of Tara Westover. I'm gonna stop talking about it. It is the memoir of Tara Westover, who is, at this point, she's an essayist, I believe, but she grew up in rural Idaho, really close to the Utah border, and her parents were kind of doomsday preppers, sort of, but they didn't really believe in the government. They thought they were big conspiracy theorists, so none of the kids went to school, none of the kids had birth certificates, they were all born at home. They don't believe in modern medicine, so nobody goes to the doctor or the hospital. And it's just about her childhood. And then also she was homeschooled. She was never allowed to go to school, but eventually she follows in the footsteps of one of her older brothers, I believe, who goes to college, and she does the same thing. And she ends up getting a PhD and is really, really smart, but it's how her world changes through an education. And I just find it really inspiring. I've read this book twice now. I reread it this year. I'll probably reread it again. I have a physical copy. I just realized it's downstairs, but hopefully I will put a picture on the screen here for you. But yeah, I love this book. And I really like reading memoirs for the inspirational effect of them, I suppose. But I'm a big fan of memoirs. The next prompt is another cookie that I don't know that I've ever had, but it's the S'more cookie, and it's supposed to be a comforting book. And I said the Mistborn series, but realistically, anything by Brandon Sanderson, I don't know why. I think it's because he writes such big worlds with so many characters. There's always comfort to be found in those books for me. Even the ones that I don't love as much, something about those series in particular really speak to me. Sounds a little dramatic, but they really feel comforting. I don't know how else to say it, but Mistborn is a fantasy series by Brandon Sanderson. It's part of the Cosmere, which is his larger world. And it's set in this time where essentially the setup for the book, it's a heist story in the first book. And you're following these people who have these abilities that are based on your ability to ingest metals and then have powers from those metals. And if you can do one, you're an Allomancer. And if you can use all of the metals, I don't remember how many there are, you are a Mistborn. And in this world, It is set like 1,000 years after there was this big war, and the Dark Lord, like evil one. So the Dark Lord is who is in charge of this world, land, kingdom, whatever you want to call it. And it's about this group of like ragtag thieves who are Mistborn. So you have Kelsier, who's a Mistborn, and he finds this girl, Vin, who he thinks is a Mistborn, who's like a street urchin. And so it's a lot of found family with them, and they are trying to figure out how they're going to take down this Dark Lord. I've got my husband to read it, so he's in the middle of book 1 right now, and I think he's really liking it. But I love these books. I really do feel like they're so atmospheric and also like character driven, but they just feel comfortable. I don't know how else to say it. Like, it's a very exciting read, but it's also a very comforting read for me. The next prompt is yet another cookie that I have not had, which is called Adventureful. I don't know what an Adventureful is, but the prompt is to pick an adventurous book. And for this, I actually picked a book that I read pretty recently that is a follow-up to a book that I loved back in 2020, and that is Seasonal Fears by Shauna Maguire. It's the follow-up to Middle Game by Shauna Maguire, and this one follows how do I even describe this? So every, like, I don't even know how to describe it, but there's basically like seasons, like there's a winter and a summer who are like there are people alive who are the embodiment of winter and the embodiment of summer. And in this book, this is so confusing to explain, but there's this accident that happens, or one of them dies, and so they need a new winter and summer to like rule the realms, essentially. And our main characters are, I think, high school students, and the girl is winter and the boy is summer. And so since they've already known each other their whole lives, they're like supposed to be better at winning this competition, but then they find these other people who are called like Corn Jenny is one of them, and then Jack something is the other, Jack Frost maybe, I don't know. But the premise is these people are supposed to be helping the winter and the summer get to this like magical maze thing so that they can win the crown and become the next like king and queen of winter and summer or whatever. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this book, but it was so fun to read. If you liked Middle Game by Shauna Maguire, I really do think you'll like the follow-up. If you did not like Middle Game, I don't know if you would like the follow-up, and I know Middle Game was very hit or miss, but I loved it, and I loved Seasonal Fears, I think even more. I had a really great time reading that book, and I just thought it was so fun, and you get cameos from the characters from the first book, so it just was a really good time for me. You can also read it separately. You just won't know any of the backstory of the characters that are in Middle Game that show up in this book. I know, and it's adventurous because they're obviously trying to like become the next king and queen, so they've got all these like trials and tribulations to do, but also they're driving cross country. I think where they end up having to go is like somewhere in the South, and they are in Oregon or something. Oregon, Washington, Northern California, somewhere like that. And so it's a big road trip book as well, but just, I don't know, I thought it was very fun. The next prompt is Samoa's, which is my favorite Girl Scout cookie. And it is, they're also called Caramel Delights in some parts of the world. And it's actually based on which factory makes the cookies. I found that out recently because we got them this time and they were Caramel Delights, and I've never seen that before. But all of that to say, this prompt is a book that combines 2 or more genres. And for this, I went with Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, which is a sci-fi thriller. So those are the genres that it combines. And this follows a guy who was like a shoo-in to be this really big guy in physics, and he always wanted to like discover all these things in physics, but then he ends up getting his girlfriend pregnant before the book starts. And so he becomes like a college professor instead of doing all of that. And he sort of always wondered what his life would be like if it wasn't. And then one day he gets kidnapped and he ends up in a different reality where he does not get his girlfriend pregnant. He does not have this wife and this kid. And he's trying to figure out how to get back to them. I love this book. I know a lot of people don't like it. That's kind of a theme, I guess. I did read another Blake Crouch either this year or late last year, and I did not like it as much as I liked this one. I thought it was kind of like, the concept was there, but like the delivery just didn't do it for me. I do want to reread this book. It's actually been sitting on my bedside to reread, but I've had a couple other physical things coming through, so I haven't had time to, but I want to read it again and tab it because I did love this so much the first time I read it, and I'm curious to see if I would like it as much on reread, especially now that it's been a while since I read this the first time, and I didn't like the other Blake Crouch book that I read. The next prompt is Do-si-dos, and the prompt for this is a book that you love that everyone else hates, or a book that everyone else hates that you love. And hate is kind of a strong word, so I don't hate any of these books, and I I do love one of these books. I don't love the other book, but I am gonna give 3 examples. So the book that I really didn't like, that people like is a fan favorite, is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I gave that book 2 stars. I did not enjoy my time reading it. I have a whole Goodreads review. I can't really talk about why I didn't like it without going into spoilers, but it's a World War II historical fiction set in France, I believe, and it's following these 2 sisters and their relationship, but also their relationship with men and the war happening around them. And I just found it so unbelievable that I did not like it at all. But I know that's an unpopular opinion. A lot of people really love that book, including like my mom and my sister, who recommended that I read it. And I felt so bad being like, oh yeah, it was fine. But I did not like that book. Now on to 2 books that I really enjoyed that I've seen a lot of negative reviews of. And I don't know if these are like universally hated books. Okay, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I think I enjoyed this, and then I've seen people that I follow on YouTube primarily who talk about these and they don't have positive things to say. So one of those is I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Makkai. I ended up giving this 4 stars, but it's I would say literary thriller, literary mystery about this woman who went to this boarding school, I think in Vermont. I could be wrong about that. It's somewhere in New England, when she was a teenager, and someone died while she was at boarding school, and someone else has been in jail for it, but I think they either find out that that person didn't do it, or they have suspicions that that person didn't do it, and so she goes back to the school as an adult to teach, and she is teaching like a media class, because she's a podcaster, and so she has her students doing these podcasts, and somebody does a podcast about this case. And it's sort of about that, and about her reckoning with what happened in her past. I really, really enjoyed this book. I've heard a lot of negative things about it. I think Literary Diversions has a really, concise is the wrong word, but like a really not super long, but like very to the point. Is that concise? Maybe. Review of why she didn't like this book. And I think all of her points are valid. I just didn't see them the same way she did. There's one thing in particular in here where the main character, her ex-husband, who she has an amicable, they're separated. I don't know if they're divorced, but they're separated. It's amicable. He's dating other people. She can see other people if she wants, and they have kids together. And so they've been co-parenting, and I believe they usually still live together, or they live in a duplex and one of them lives on one side and the other one lives on the other. Something like that. Like they're very close quarters. And someone comes out and says that her ex-husband assaulted her or harassed her or something at their job years before. And I think her husband's really big in the art world. Forgive me for not remembering all of the details of this, but it's a lot about her like reckoning with that part of her husband and like whether or not this can be true. And I know Literary Diversions talks about how she like doesn't understand why she wouldn't just believe the person, but I kind of get it. Like someone that you trust and love and have had children with, like to hear that kind of thing about them. I understand wanting to take a deeper look and to dig into it, but I know that rubs some people the wrong way. I thought it was handled fine and wasn't like victim blaming or I don't think the author was victim blaming or trying to say that like, oh, people are unreliable. I think it was just more about this person having to like reckon with these things that are happened in her life, which I think is valid personally. But again, your mileage may vary. The other book that I want to talk about that I loved that I know a lot of people didn't like is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is it's adult. I think it's an adult fantasy. It's an urban fantasy though, and it's set in our world, but it's at Yale. And we follow Alex Stern, who is a student at Yale, and she gets picked to go to Yale or like recruited for Yale because she has this ability to see ghosts. And in this world, Yale has secret societies that are related to magic, and magic attracts ghosts and like ghouls kind of. And so they need someone who can see them to keep them away from these like magical ceremonies and protect the people who are in this society. So Alex joins the secret society. There's also like past and present timelines because in the present, certain characters are missing, certain things have happened, but you don't really know the whole time. So you're going back to figure out like what happened and lay the puzzle pieces down. I know this book has a sequel, and I have not read it yet, but I really want to. The sequel is called Hellbent, and it's been out over a year now, and I haven't picked it up, but I'm planning on rereading this year and then reading Hellbent finally. So I know a lot of people didn't like that book. I think people didn't like Alex as a character, and I think they didn't really like the like, I don't know if it's even soft magic, but they just didn't like the way the world was, and it really worked for me. I really enjoyed it. The last prompt is Thin Mints, and this is to talk about one of your all-time favorite books, and I figured I would just pick the book that I believe ended up in my #1 spot last year. It was between 2, I think, that I had like, that were very close, but I think I ended up going with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Everyone and their mom has read this book at this point, but if you haven't, I really think you should pick it up. This is a literary fiction, I guess. And it's about these two characters, three kind of, but it's primarily about these two whose names I'm not gonna remember. I know it's Sadie. What's his name? Sam. Sadie and Sam. And they met when they were children and bonded over their love of video games, and then they didn't see each other again until they're in college. And they run into each other because they go to different colleges, but they're both in Boston. One of them's at Harvard, one of them's at MIT, and they find out that they both still love video games, and they decide, hey, why don't we make a game together? And so it's about their entire life. Like, it follows them well into adulthood, and their relationships with other people, their relationships with each other, their relationship like with the world around them, and like their business relationships. And it follows also like the video game that they create and what that does to the world, because it becomes a very popular video game. I absolutely loved this book. It made me laugh. It made me cry. It was so, so good and so poignant. And I'm really, really glad that I read it. And I think that other people would like it too. I will say there's a lot of discussion of video games in here. I have heard people say that they didn't really care that much about that. I don't know what it is. I'm not a gamer girl. I love video games and books. Like the Three Body Problem, the video game portion of that book is like one of my favorite things of all time. I don't know how else to explain it, but I really like video games and books apparently, which is weird because I don't like, I mean, not that I dislike video games, but like I just don't play them. So that's fun for me. But yes, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, this ended up being my #1 favorite book of last year. If it wasn't this, it was Cloud Cuckoo Land, which is right there. But that is it for this tag. The last question is tag-alongs, which is another cookie, and it says to tag people. I don't really care about tagging people, so if you want to do this tag, you're more than welcome to. If you want to answer the questions in the comments down below, I would love to hear from you. Also, let me know if you've read any of these books and how you felt about them, and let me know if you agree or disagree with my hot takes, I'm gonna call them, of Ninth House. I have some questions for you and The Nightingale. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. I do try to post 2 videos every week, but I try to at least get 1 up. We'll see how that goes. And I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!